Good morning, it's October 25th. This is to my liberal friends. Well, Joe Biden never met a catchy phrase he could not plagiarize. He remembered how Ronald Reagan embraced the term Reaganomics, and so, being the copycat that he's been all his life, Biden is now running his election campaign on the term Bidenomics. His White House team has not understood why the public has not accepted the term and realized that Bidenomics is good for them. They've been openly berating the media for not pushing the Biden economic agenda, claiming that if the media would promote their program, then the people would realize just how good it must be. They ignore that the public is not going to buy this pig in a poke simply because the administration thinks they should. Well, voters in swing states disapproved Bidenomics by a 2-to-1 margin, and that's according to a poll last week. And Democrats keep wondering why more black and Hispanic voters are showing interest in the GOP. This is critical, new to the Biden election, because they're relying heavily on minority voters to carry Biden. A possible explanation arrived last week in a new Federal Reserve report showing how minorities in particular have struggled in the Biden years. The report by the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances shows some of the problems. Biden would point out that the survey indicated that a typical family's net worth increased 37% during his time as president. But they ignore that this increase in net worth was fueled primarily by the rising stock market and the skyrocketing housing prices. That increase in your house's value does not translate into cash in your pocket unless you're selling your house. And then if you want to buy another, you have to come up with the cash for the differential. What people have come to realize is they are actually cash poorer than they were before. And then they get hit with a higher property tax bill because of the increased value of their house. Inflation has been killing the average family. The report shows that the typical white family saw a rise in income by 1.3%. But when it comes to black and Hispanic families, they found a decline in income of 1.6% for black families and 1.1% for Hispanic families. Putting that in real perspective, inflation ate up any of the increase in income for most of these families, white or minority, and they found they have less cash than before. Black and Hispanic households benefited more from government support, including extraordinary pandemic-era programs, such as sweetened food stamps, stimulus checks, rental assistance, enhanced unemployment benefits, and larger child tax care credits. But COVID relief is now in the rearview mirror, and Congress's spending binge on those benefits fueled the high inflation that's hurt consumers whose real earnings have stagnated. All this explains why Americans, and especially minorities, are sour on Mr. Biden's economic policies. Quote, "We see a broad-based increase in economic pessimism that was especially strong for non-white families," end quote. And that's what the Fed's report says. Americans of every race report more uncertainty about their incomes than they did in 2019, but the step up in uncertainty for black and Hispanic families was especially strong, 14.2% and 10.9% for each one of those two groups. Anyone that looks at the polls being taken out there can see the American public's not optimistic about the direction of the country, and especially when it comes to the economy. In a USA Today's Suffolk poll, they found that 17% think the country's headed in the right direction, and 71% believe it's headed in the wrong direction. That 17% must be the liberal elites who are living on family wealth. Anyone that's living from paycheck to paycheck knows there are major problems. What Biden and his team of woke underlings don't get is his poor marks in the economy are driven by realities that everyday Americans have to live with. His climate and energy policies are raising costs for consumers and employers, and a regulatory avalanche is creating business uncertainty. The other major voting group that Biden is counting on are young voters. And by this, I'm talking about those under the age of 40. But they are the ones who are entering that phase of life where they want to buy a home. But good luck with trying to do that. Average daily mortgage rates hit 8% last week for the first time in 23 years, which on top of soaring home values is making it harder than ever for people to buy a house. Plenty of would-be homeowners are staying on the sideline as they wait for rates to return to more affordable levels. Mortgage applications decreased to their lowest level since 1995, and that's according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. But while rates are likely to drift down over the next couple of years, don't hold your breath for 3% mortgages to come back. And that means that fewer homes will be built, and the correlation in the economy is that all the things that's going into building a new house, lumber, tile, roofing, brickwork, appliances, carpeting, etc., they're not going to be sold either, and that has an impact down the line. Finally, I want to comment about Trump's actions yesterday. I talked about his problems yesterday. Well, Thomas Emmer, the congressman from Minnesota, had garnered the most votes to be the Republican caucus nominee to be the speaker. But Trump had to interject and call him a, quote, globalist rhino. And that meant all of his acolytes in the House had to oppose him if he came to the floor of the House for a vote. and that remains the problem with Trump. Everything has to be about him. And what was his beef with Emmer? He had criticized Trump over his actions after the elections, and he had not defended Trump strongly enough on his multiple indictments. Once again, if you don't do everything Trump wants you to do exactly the way he wants you to do, he's going to start calling you names. And unfortunately, he's got enough idiots in Congress that hang on every word. Trump has become a cancer in the Republican Party, and those that follow him like blind mice don't seem to get it. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. I appreciate your comments.